Alright, so we're back, of course, talking about some Final Fantasy VII. We're talking the Remake Project. We're talking Remake Part 2. We're talking Rebirth. One of these days I'll figure out an intro. It's hard for me to just say Rebirth, because it just feels so weird. I feel like Remake Part 2 sounded so good in my head, and we knew that it probably wasn't going to be the title. But I've been saying Remake Part 2 for so long. Today we're discussing my boy Zack Fair yet again. As always, I will take any opportunity to talk about Zack. He's my favorite FF7 character. He's my favorite Final Fantasy character of all the times. So anytime I get the opportunity to talk about him or a video discussion, I will take that. But I think even more so than usual, there's reason to these days. For one, Crisis Core getting that remaster, right? Like, that's a huge deal. Like, we've been waiting on that for like 15 years at this point. So it's like a big deal. So Zack's a little more in everybody's face than he was even just like a month ago at this point. But I'd also argue in certain ways, like what's happening with Zack is almost like the biggest thing happening with the remake stories so far. Because we expect the rest of the story for the next two games to play out relatively the same. There's probably going to be a massive change at the end. Like, there's going to be a different end goal, even if Sephiroth doesn't meet her and all the other shit, right? And obviously, there'll be changes throughout the story, but for the most part, like 90% of the game is going to be the FF7 that you know, I'm sure. You could also talk about, Aerith's knowledge. Where did she get that? How does she know what she knows? There's other major talking points, right? But something about the ending of Remake, where we're seeing Zack potentially alive, and the fact that they keep sprinkling information for us. We got a little teaser at the end of episode intermission, and then the first trailer/teaser that we get for the next game, FF7 Rebirth, they also give us a little bit of something for Zack. Like, they even, Square Enix knows, like, this is kind of the biggest thing right now. And what is his impact going to be? Let's assume that Zack is alive. How is it going to tie into the Remake story? If he's in an alternate timeline, especially that. Like, if he's in a completely different timeline from our Remake group, how the hell are they going to coincide these stories? Like, what's the end goal for both of these different timelines, right? Like, there's a lot of questions here, man. So, and again, in a lot of ways, I feel like what's happening with Zack is kind of the biggest thing so far. But something I want to touch on really quickly, since we are talking about Zack in the Rebirth trailer, that I kept forgetting to talk about with previous videos, and it especially would have been useful for the video whether or not Zack is or isn't dead, is the white feather again. Now, we talked about with that video that some people think that the feather is symbolic of Aerith, which I think makes no sense at all. But somebody did point out in the comments of that video that there is some very light association with her and feathers, and it's her limit break from the OG game Great Gospel, which has like, what, angels I think it is or something like that. Which, to be perfectly fair, is something I completely didn't think about or kind of forgot about, just because you don't often get Great Gospel in a playthrough, right? Unless you just really want to get that, because Aerith's going to die. There's not really any point in leveling her up, outside of going for like the trophy or something, or the achievement. That being said, it is just a move, right? It's just an attack. It's like associating Barret with satellites because of satellite beam. It just doesn't make any sense. So what I wanted to point out and talk about is that during the second time you see the white feather in the trailer near the end, it definitely takes the shape of the Buster Sword for like 1 or 2 seconds. So again, the association with Aerith and White Feather doesn't make sense to me, especially given the fact that the feather takes the shape of the sword that's iconic to Cloud, Zack, and Angeal. Why would a Buster Sword shaped feather have anything to do with Aerith? Now, putting that stuff aside, if we were to take the Buster Sword feather, for lack of a better term, and rotate it to where it would be like it was on somebody's back, the blade part of the Buster Sword would be pointing to the right. And this is specifically how Zack wears it and how Angeal wears it, whereas Cloud is the opposite. Cloud has the blade of the Buster Sword pointing to the left. We see this on the cover of OG FF7. We see this on the cover of Remake. It's how we knew back whenever we got the final trailer for Remake right before it released that this scene was involving Zack, simply because of the angle of the Buster Sword. So trust me, this shit matters. So when I look back at that white feather in the Rebirth trailer, given the shape that it takes, but also the angle that the Buster Sword feather takes, that I think it's 100% symbolic of either Zack or Angeal. It's kind of hard to say which one. I think Angeal's the more likely one. I think I've said that in the past before too. We have talked about it, the white feather potentially representing Zack, of course, with the Zack potentially being dead video, or whatever the case. But I think more than likely it's probably Angeal. Now, what is the point of the feather? What is the point of the Angeal representation? I don't entirely know. We talked about the possibility of maybe Angeal being in Zack's story, his timeline, his live stream if he's dead, whatever the case. Maybe he's like a guide for Zack, trying to help him along the way, maybe trying to help him accept that he's dead if he's dead, or if he is alive and going through the world of Guy in this alternate timeline, maybe he's like a guide trying to help Zack figure out what's going on. That's a thing, like kind of an opposite of what Sephiroth is doing in the Remake story. I think that makes a lot of sense. We know based on the lore when it comes to FF7 that you can see people that are within the live stream that are dead, right? So it's possible that he could be seeing Angeal throughout the world. We see this with Advent Children, where Clyde has a conversation, a full-on conversation with Zack, but also like seems to physically see Aerith and Zack at the end of Advent Children as well. So I just think, given what we've seen throughout the compilation, that it's a possibility that they could have this like almost Force Ghost, I think is what people refer to it as, of Angeal kind of helping him figure out what's going on, whatever it is that's going on. Do I think that that's 100% going to happen? I don't entirely know. It's just hard to say. We can go all day talking about theories and discussions. We've been doing that for the past 2+ years at this point, but we still at this point just don't really know what the hell they're doing. The other thing that I seen mentioned, I think it was by Max whenever he was on the Easy Allies podcast within the last day or so, talking about the Rebirth trailer and shit like that the White Feather could be representation for Angeal, but like him just being happy that Zack is alive. Because obviously we see Angeal fly down from like heaven or whatever the case at the end of Crisis Core, like pick up Zack and ascend him to heaven. All the White Feathers are falling down from the sky. But maybe what we're seeing with the Rebirth trailer is that it's just Angeal happy that Zack got to live, got to be the hero that he always wanted to be. And if you want to get into a bit of the tinfoil hat kind of crazy territory with ideas or theories, I've seen it very slightly theorized that maybe Angeal had a hand in making sure or helping Zack survive at the end of Remake. I mean, I would assume that he's not fully joined up with the live stream, given that we do see him at the end of Crisis Core, right? Very similar to Aerith and similar to like Zack and stuff, why Cloud sees them, because they're not fully joined up with the live stream, right? So maybe it's possible that from within the live stream, from within the planet, maybe he kind of helped to some degree. Because obviously the Whisperers are the will of the planet. They're a part of the planet. And if he's not fully dead and he's within the planet itself, maybe he did something. I just don't know what it is. I don't know how likely that is, but I think it's an interesting idea. But my dudes, I think that's pretty much going to be the video. We're going to talk about something else entirely. The video topic was going to be something else. This White Feather thing was just going to be a part of the video towards the beginning just because I haven't touched on it yet. But this already turned into like a 6-7 minute video. So I think we're going to save that topic that I was going to discuss with this video for probably the next one, assuming that nothing else comes up. Plus, it's kind of nice to do a video where we're more focused on one thing instead of talking about multiple different things. It's kind of what we've been doing recently. So I want to pass off to you guys. The White Feather, I'm assuming that it's not like super well known or super noticed right now that it takes the shape of the Buster Sword, just because I haven't seen a lot of people mention that. It's been mentioned a few times in the comments of my videos. And I know I mention Max a lot, but he's kind of a pillar in this community, and people like respect his thoughts and theories and opinions and things like that. And I've watched all the videos that he's done for Rebirth, and again, the Easy Allies podcast he did recently, and I've yet to even hear him mention one time that that feather takes the shape of the Buster Sword, so I don't know how well known that is. So I'll pass on to you guys. What are your thoughts on that now, if you didn't know that before? So that White Feather takes the shape of the Buster Sword, but specifically the angle that it's at, where if it was an actual Buster Sword, the blade would be pointing to the right, which is very specific to how Zack carries it on his back, but also Angeal. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think it means? What is it symbolizing? But my dudes, that is going to be the end of the video, so hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you guys aren't anyone wants to more Final Fantasy VII Rebirth content. Turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitter, @DavidYT, and my Discord. The links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.